Most of the time when people make videos about urban prospecting, they're actually referring to the little pieces of gold that's in computers and cell phones, and there's a lot of gold to be had that way. It takes a lot of work, but there is an easier way of finding gold. And before I get to it, I must explain I have an odd knack of being able to detect ion fields and other energy fields by using a pendulum. This is something I've been doing for 25 years and helping people with their health, finding what they're high and low in, and finding things that they're allergic to. This pendulum here that I'm using is just a small crappie fishing bobber with a tassel cord on it. That's what I use when I'm indoors. When I'm out in the wind, I like this one. This is just a little kid's top. I drilled a hole in it, tied the tassel to it. This works out really good for me. And this you can see in my other videos that has allowed me to make some very interesting discoveries. And in my dowsing research video, I showed how I discovered that I can send out a tracking field and follow it with a pendulum, and it will go until it hits the matrix columns, which radiate up and down for any elements that are above or below it. And it's just like the screen on the matrix. It's pretty hard to decipher what actually all those columns of letters or symbols or numbers are. But using dowsing, you can actually learn to navigate through those matrix columns. And that is what has led to a bunch of discoveries. Now, to give a quick background here, the Earth's core is full of gold and all sorts of other metals and minerals. And that gold churns up and often goes into rocks that the Earth kicks up. Oftentimes very, very, couldn't have a high concentration of gold, but at the atom level. And in order to process rocks like this that have gold content in them, you would actually have to crush them down and put them into a crucible and melt the gold out, which is a lot of work. But there are easier ways, and in order to describe it, the Earth, most of the gold that people mine is actually out of quartz, because deep down in the Earth there are high pressure, high temperature, and water will get into that high pressure and temperature to where it will not boil. It'll get hot, so hot it can melt steel, but it will not boil because of the pressure. Now, minerals will accumulate in that water, and it will make like crystal candy. It will make quartz like crystal candy. But into this will be these streaks of iron, and it's where the quartz and the iron meet that gold often ends up in there. And this particular piece here, when you hold it in the sun, you can actually see gold glistening in there. And the quartz is actually fairly, it breaks real easy. And here what you have is when the gold is still in the mountains or wherever it is where the Earth has kicked it up, and the gold is in the strands with the iron, and that's called primary gold, where it's still in the mountains. Now, chunks of this stuff break off and they tumble down the mountain, and they break out from the original place, and that's called alluvial gold, where it's still in the quartz, but it's not loose, hasn't been loosened up. Now, there is then alluvial gold, alluvial gold, which is where the gold breaks out of the quartz and is usually carried along by water. That's what people are usually prospecting when they're working with water, is alluvial gold. And the thing to remember there is alluvial gold, alluvial, is all over the place, because as the alluvial gold breaks out of the alluvial gold, as it's tumbled down the river, it goes into the rivers, but then there's localized and global flooding that spreads especially the fine stuff, spreads it all over the place. So it's everywhere, especially the fine stuff. And what happens is a lot of it ended up in ancient rivers, ancient lakes, ancient oceans, and these oceans then, as they churned, made sand dunes and kicked up the fine gold into the sand, and those deposits are still left behind. And this stone here, as you can see that it's rounded, and the reason it's rounded is as it broke off from the mountain, it ended up in a river and started tumbling down the river, chunks of it breaking out, chunks of the quartz breaking off, and they got tumbled into gravel. The alluvial gold broke off from a lot of the pieces, and they got spread all over the place. So what you ended up with is you have a lot of sand and gravel that has gold in it. Well, along come construction companies that just suck up sand and gravel. They mix it with tar and cement, and they pour it out on our city streets and highways, and they build buildings out of it. So there is literally, our streets are paved with gold. It's few and far between, but there is gold there. And a lot of the gravel, like this quartz gravel, when the road begins to wear over time, and through weather conditions and through traffic and sunlight deterioration, pieces of the gravel will come up, be kicked up onto the surface, and tires will grind it and break it open, and the gold that is in there will be released, sometimes some fairly large pieces. It will be released on the surface of the tar or the cement. And the alluvial gold that is in the sand will be broken loose as the sand begins to deteriorate. So you've got larger pieces from the fragile quartz that's breaking apart when vehicles run over it, and you've got very, very fine pieces that are coming out of the sand as the roads deteriorate. Well, then you end up with, as we have here in this parking lot, a good illustration. We've got gravel all over the place here, and as the water and rain come, the gold that has been released to the surface begins to work its way downhill. Well, most driveways and parking lots have these, a drain. And if you worked for the city and you were a sewer sucker and you could get down in there and suck that out, you would find that at the very bottom of that is a nice layer of very rich dirt down in there that has gold in it. A lot of that fine gold has washed down in there. But you and I can't go down there. It's not safe, and it's probably not legal. But what we can do is, as this gold washes down here over time, it will settle right before the grate. And I went along here and I scraped the sand off and the gravel off, because it's not in the sand and gravel. The gold actually went into the dirt that was below the sand and gravel. So I took a whisk broom and whisked it up, and I didn't have to go that deep. And basically, if your broom can't get it up, then the gold can't get down into that. If the broom can't get down in there, the gold can't get down in there. But here's a little bit left over on the corner here, and it's this stuff here that has a lot of the very, very fine gold in it. And these grates, whether they be in a parking lot, whether they be in a rest area, larger stores, Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, those big stores, I find a very high concentration of gold right around in the drain, and particularly right here, and also get down in here. The gold is in there. So you want to start with urban prospecting. You want to start at the drain. You want to work, get the sand and gravel off the top, get down in there and clean that out as far down as your whisk broom will take you. But again, remember, if the whisk broom won't get it up, then the gold isn't going to be getting down in there. Also pay attention to cracks. Cement is seamed, and if the seam runs in the direction of the drain, forget it. The gold has been washed down and into the drain. But look for where the cracks are horizontal to the drain itself. And the same with tar. Oftentimes tar cracks up, and if the crack runs that way, forget it. If it runs this way, dig it up. Because a lot of that gold, if it runs crosswise to the flow of the water, the gold is going to get caught in there. And the further away from the drain you go, the more you can ignore it, because everything is going to be concentrated. And that's the term for gold prospecting, is you want to concentrate. And these are called concentrations. You want to take all that stray occasional gold, and it naturally gets concentrated. Nature concentrates it right there for you. Another thing to remember is, like here we have a building, so there's not much open area here between here and there, so you're not going to find much gold between here and there because the building is so close. The larger area you have, you're going to have more gold that's coming from there because it has more surface area for gold to be washed up. So that's another thing to consider. If you're next to a building or something, that side might not have much on it at all. And when you're dealing with curbs, watch the curbs, because as the gold is flowing down the curb, if there are seams, and most curbs, cement curbs do have seams in them, the gold is going to fall into those seams, particularly right before it gets to the drain itself. And if you have a lot of gravel before the drain, scoop the gravel off, get down to the inch or two that's on the bottom, and that's where the gold is going to be. This is the pannings from that big drain that we were looking at. The gold actually is not showing up because it's actually glistening. You really can't see the actual particles themselves until the sun hits it just right. But they're in there. There are lots of them, microfines even. Shake that, maybe you can see that stuff sparkling in there. That's where it gets exciting, when you have stuff sparkling at you in your pan. Let's see some more here. Yep, definitely worth going after. Sure is a whole lot better hobby than sitting back and playing video games or watching TV all night long. Yeah, we got gold in the pan. Color in the pan, as they say. Here's a typical scenario. A Home Depot parking lot. The ground will be driven over by semis. It's actually better to do this out where the cars are, but then you'll notice there's the curb. And there's cracks along there. And right here, where the water pushes everything in, you see that we've got some deposits here. Let's check this out. Gold. Yep. What up here? Gold. Nope. Gold. Gold. It's right down here. Right along the edge. So, person, you just take your broom and sweep it up, and be sure to go down as far as the dirt goes, because sometimes the tar is deeper right along the edge, so you kind of want to dig down as far as that will go. Oftentimes the gold is settled down deep in there. Let's see for gold here. Right along the edge. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll take that too. As a matter of fact, we'll just go right around this ring here. Take it right down to the tar. Oh, excuse me. As a matter of fact, let's check this ring right here. Gold. Right in there where the manhole cover meets the seam, that's filled. That also has gold deposits in it. So we will take that down. And we'll go over here and take this down. Oh, there's a nice deep spot. Those tend to be nice receivers for gold. When you run into those, go down as far as you can go. That's where this bucket is so nice, because you can just get in there with a broom and just dig with it and whip it into your container. Okay, let's check, see how well we did. Gold. A little bit more right in there, but gold. A little bit more in here. We'll clean it up. There we go. Let's pan it out. Okay, this is the pannings from 3 manhole covers, drain holes from Home Depot, and I just cleaned around the outside of them where the cast iron meets the tar, and everything that you see that's sparkling there is, and it's completely underwater. So what you see sparkling, that's actually gold. I went through here with a magnet, already took out any pyrite that might be in there. We've got some larger pieces over here that's in with the with those chunks. They're not, yep, but just thousands of small little, and the camera doesn't do it justice. You really can't see all that's in there. And if I was better at panning, I could get this out, get this fine sand out, but I'm not that good at it yet. I'm gonna have to get myself a shaker table or a blue bowl or something, because I'm dealing with so much flour gold. But that's just off of three drains in a parking lot, and these are actually by Chicago where I did this. Just pulled into a Walmart here, so the first thing I did is I went around and cleaned out the drain, and I worked around here, the cracks that are in the tar here, and then you will notice that the low spot of this parking lot is right down the center here, and there are cracks that run down the center, but there's no gold in them because the water flows this way. But up here there are more cracks that run this way, and the water flows here, so there was gold in those, so I cleaned those out. And the same thing on this side. These here there was nothing, but up here you see there's a line of cracks there. The ones that run that way, there's no gold in that because the water has washed it as it's coming down toward the drain. But then there's these cracks that run this way, and those are full of gold because they run crosswise to the flow of the water. So that's just how you read in a parking lot. You always want the cracks that are crosswise to the flow of the water, and you always want to start at the grate. Here we have a typical street. This particular one is an industrial area. A lot of trucks going down, what cars will do. You can see in the middle there that the gravel, that the tar road is starting to be torn up. It's getting pretty weathered, and there's a lot of rocks that have come up and been ground and worked over, and so that stuff is going to be washed over to the edge. Now here we've got 2 factors. One, we've got a curb, and about every 200 feet there's a drain in there, so there's going to be gold right along that curb. But there's also a seam where the tar meets the cement there, and a lot of that gold is actually going to fall into that seam. Plus 2, out here there are cracks in the tar, and if those are deep enough, the gold is going to go to the bottom of those cracks. So we've got the bottoms of those cracks, the bottoms of the seam, the junction between the tar and the cement, and then we've also got the cement itself. I'm going to go out there and dig it up. It's pretty windy, so we'll see how the video turns out. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's check the cement. Gold. got gold in there. And we got a little bit of grass in this crack here. And let's see what we have for gold in here. Gold. Yeah, we got gold there too. Okay, and just out of curiosity, the cracks in the tar themselves, gold. Not that much. Very faint. Yeah, there's a deeper crack there and there's a little bit of gold in it. But most of it's going to be in this seam here and along the curb. So I'm going to dig it up. I'm going to run it through a screen and we'll see what we got. Okay, this is the gold that I panned from the curb, and I want to show it to you dry. Just because it's actually showing up better dry, but just look for the glistening. That's the gold that's in there. And so it was quite a bit in there. Not as much as I expected, but not disappointing. The thing that's odd though is these sparklies that you see there are microscopic, and they look bigger on camera here than they actually are. I mean, you're barely enough to see. You really can't see them until the light shines on them. But just off that curb, you can see we got gold. Here we have a large sloped parking lot. There are no drains in it. Now, the interesting thing is there are potholes, but vehicles have been driving through the potholes and forcing everything out. So there's not much gold in the potholes at all, except for where you get cracks so tight there that the wheels cannot force it out. Let's check this here. Gold. Nope. Gold. Yeah, this is where it's... But as you get to where the tires can hit it and get in there, then it's not in there. But the smaller cracks, it's there. And one of the things I found really interesting was to go onto the down water side of it. And I would think that the gold would be driven over it and pushed into here. We have gold. No. What I found, no gold here. What I found is the gold is right here. A line of it. Right where the tar meets the gravel. And so that's something to keep in mind if you're working the edge of a road or something. You don't really need to look down in the ditch. You can look right along there, right where the tar meets the gravel. The exception is if they put in the corrugated ripples, if they've ground the ripples in rumble strips, because when they grind the rumble strips in, they'll have a power rake broom come and whip the pieces off down into the ditch. So from the rumble strips you might find some in the ditch, but as far as normal washout, it'll be right where the tar meets the gravel. Here we have a spillway going between the landscaping, and wherever you have a spillway like this, there will be horizontal seams, and it's those horizontal seams that are going to accumulate the gold that's flowing down here. And I just checked this one, and sure enough, right in there's gold. And the other thing that you want to do is, if you frequently clean these out, then you keep this open, so you keep a trap available for the gold that's going to be washing through here. Here is another long run of water. It comes down here, and we've got a nice deposit of black sands right there, because that's where gold likes to accumulate. And I checked this stuff up here, and I didn't get any gold until I got down to that black sand, and sure enough, there's gold right in there. I checked this other side over here, and there's very little in here at all. But on this side here, which is open to that long run of parking lot, that is full of gold in there. And on the left side of that gravel there, there's gold.